During a high-stakes job interview, Sophie glanced at a photo on the boss's desk. When she looked closer, she realized it was a picture of her own mother, leaving her completely stunned. What happened next was nothing short of astonishing, as the meeting revealed a life-changing revelation. "Mom, I'm already late for the interview. I'll call you after I'm done. Love you. Bye," Sophie hurriedly said as she rushed to her interview. She had to get this job, or she would lose her mother forever. No, Sophie wouldn't let that happen. She had to get this job by any means necessary. Since childhood, Sophie had witnessed her mother struggle hard to make ends meet, giving her the best life she could. Her mother had no one beside her for comfort or support, not even Sophie's father. Sophie never knew her father, and whenever she asked about him, her mother either avoided the question or simply said, "We never got along well, so I left him. That was it." Sophie never heard anything more about him. She hadn't seen anything of him except for one wedding photo of her parents. For her mother, Sophie was her world, and for Sophie, her mother was hers. They didn't need anyone else. However, sometimes Sophie did wonder about her father, but he had never tried to find her, nor had she sought him out. Sophie sighed as she opened the door to the reception lounge of the office. Today wasn't the day to think about any of that. Today, she would focus solely on getting the job. Her mother was fighting for her life, and Sophie would do whatever it took to save her. "I will crack this interview. I will," Sophie thought as the receptionist asked her to wait for her turn. The office seemed enormous to Sophie, who had spent years in a small rented apartment. Rent, oh no! She had to pay the rent, and the due date was long gone. "They'll throw us out. Please, God, help me this time," she thought, her heart racing. "I know I lack the qualifications, but please let me get this job. I need to pay the rent, and for my mother's treatment. Please, God, help me this time. I won't ask for anything else," Sophie prayed silently. Just then, a man in his early 30s entered the building, talking on the phone. Everyone in the office became alert, but the arrogant man didn't seem to care. He was shouting at someone on the other end of the line. You can't do a simple task," he bellowed. "How hard is it to find an old lady when I've already given you all the details?" There was a pause as the person on the other end responded. "I know 25 years have passed, and many things have changed, but you're a detective. It's your job to find this woman, by any means necessary." He paused. "But you must find her. I'm willing to spend every last penny, but I won't accept a no. If you can't do this, tell me now, and I'll hire someone else." With that, the man angrily disconnected the call and glared at the receptionist. "Have they all arrived?" he asked sternly. The timid receptionist gulped and stammered, "Why, yes, sir." The man frowned. "Why are you stammering now?" he demanded, switching from his sunglasses to gold-rimmed glasses. Without waiting for an answer, he dismissed her concern with a curt, "Never mind. Start sending them in." After he left, the receptionist called Sophie's name. Sophie stood and approached the desk. "Go straight, then take a left. The first room in the corner is Mr. Jack's office. Knock before you enter, or it will be your last day in this office." Sophie nodded, feeling even more nervous as the receptionist added with a smirk, "Good luck." Taking a deep breath, Sophie walked toward Jack's office, unaware of the fate awaiting her. Inside his office, Jack leaned back in his chair, lost in thoughts of a revelation from 5 years ago, a truth he had learned from his affluent grandfather, one that had shattered him. He cursed the day, the moment he found out. "I can't even blame Grandpa," Jack muttered, clutching his head. He was on his deathbed. Jack wiped his eyes and glanced at the photograph on his desk. It was a picture of a young woman holding a baby with warmth and care. The baby looked peaceful, safe in the arms that held him. Jack unconsciously caressed the photograph. Bam! Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a loud crash. He turned to see a woman who had walked straight into his glass door. Irritated, Jack opened the door for the woman, who was now scrambling to gather her belongings from the floor. Can't you see the glass? How did you manage to crash into it? Jack nearly shouted. The woman, now standing, looked embarrassed. I'm sorry, sir. It's not entirely my fault, Sophie stammered. I saw the picture on your desk and tried to get a better look, but I forgot there was a glass door between us. I'm genuinely sorry. Jack looked shocked. Why were you trying to see the picture on my desk? He asked. Well, sir, she replied, I know it's quite a distance, but I felt I knew the woman in the picture, even though it was many meters away. Jack looked hopeful, like a traveler finally finding water after days in the desert. Sophie cursed herself for her curiosity. She hadn't meant to peek into the room like that, but when she saw Jack caressing the picture from a distance, she felt it was her mother's photo. But why would a stranger have her mother's picture on his desk? Out of curiosity, Sophie tried to get a closer look and forgot about the glass door, leading to her embarrassing fall. She expected Jack to be furious, but he seemed different when she mentioned the picture. Why? Jack took Sophie's hand and led her to his desk. He picked up the photo frame with the young woman and the baby and handed it to her. Look closely. Do you know this woman? My life depends on your answer. Please answer me, Jack said desperately. Sophie stared at the picture, shocked and curious. Of course, that's my mom. But who is this baby? I don't know him. Jack's world spun as Sophie spoke. He couldn't believe his ears. He nearly collapsed but managed to steady himself by grabbing the edge of his chair. Bewildered, Sophie asked, Are you feeling okay? What's wrong? You're her daughter? Jack asked, staring at her intently. Sophie nodded slowly. I'll be 25 next week. Jack frowned and mumbled. She was pregnant when he stopped, then composed himself and, after a moment, softened his expression. What's your name? Sophie, she replied. Sophie, Jack repeated, holding her hand. Can you take me to your mother? I promise I'll explain everything. There was such a plea in Jack's voice that Sophie agreed without hesitation. My mother isn't doing well. She's been diagnosed with a terrible illness, and I'm trying hard to give her everything she's given me, Sophie said as they made their way to her apartment. She paused and added, Don't think I'm telling you this to get the job. I just felt like sharing. Jack remained silent, though he wanted to say many things. When they reached the apartment, Sophie rang the doorbell and a thin, sickly woman answered. Though she looked exhausted, Jack immediately recognized her as the woman from the photograph. However, Sophie's mother didn't recognize him. She looked at him curiously. Jack, on the other hand, broke into tears, leaving both women confused. What he said next shattered their world. Mom, Jack managed to say as he embraced the woman, sobbing uncontrollably. Grandpa told me everything on his deathbed. How he never approved of your marriage to Dad, because you were from a middle-class family. How Dad left him and his business empire to be with you. How we three were a happy family until my accident. Jack paused, now calmer, and sat on the floor with his head resting on his mother's lap as she caressed his hair. Sophie, still in shock, sat beside them. Her mother mechanically caressed her son's hair. Finally, she spoke. We were running out of money. Your dad left no stone unturned to gather funds for your surgery, but nothing was enough. I knew there was only one person who could help, your grandfather. And he gave me the toughest condition, she said, her tear-streaked cheeks glistening. Jack nodded, understanding. Yes, he said if you left me and Dad, he would cover the cost of the surgery. You had no other option to save me. You wanted me to live, even if it cost you everything. Jack's mother broke down, releasing tears she had held for 25 years. Jack hugged her tightly and whispered, Why did you love me so much, Mom? You didn't even tell Dad you were pregnant when you left him. How did you endure all this pain? Sophie awoke with a start as she felt a nudge on her shoulder. She had only dozed off on the soft mattress of the queen-size bed, so when Jack nudged her, she quickly woke up. Mom, she asked, rubbing her eyes. Jack sat beside her, smiling. She's doing better. Don't worry. She'll be fine. I couldn't save Dad, but this time I'll be there for her and for you." He pulled Sophie into a warm hug. This time, he wouldn't let anyone break their family. This time, they would be a big, happy family once more. Sophie's journey highlights how facing challenges can bring us closer to those we care about. It shows that even when things seem overwhelming, reaching out and supporting each other can lead to unexpected healing and new beginnings. Sometimes, it's through our toughest times that we find the strength to connect, understand, and build a better future together.